DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as DreAllDay, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part 3 of our ongoing mini-series here, Why Western Society is Collapsing. If you haven't heard the first 2 parts, you know what to do. Go back to the previous 2 episodes and make sure you catch those so that you understand every piece I'm going to share here today, because they are connected to what I've shared already. So picking up right where we left off on point number 7, why Western society is collapsing. Number 7, decline in education and intellectual rigor. What does intellectual rigor mean? Intellectual rigor means if someone comes with an idea or belief or perspective, it is shared in the marketplace of ideas, and people may challenge, test, flip around, go against, and look to validate, disprove, etc. that idea. That's what intellectual rigor is about, which means if someone comes out with any point of view, regardless of what it is, regardless of how you feel emotionally about it, it must be challenged and flipped around and held up to the light, so to speak, before it is accepted as a dogma and as something that everyone has to go along with. Let me ask you a question. Did that happen with the response to the COVID virus 5 years ago? Of course it didn't happen. It did not happen. We were told, well, these are scientists and you're not a scientist and you're not a doctor, so who are you to question what you've been told? Bullshit. Just yesterday, from the day that I'm recording this, the New York Times put out an article. I don't know if y'all know about this. By the time you hear this episode, all of you should know about it. Let me tell you what it said. It said, and this was in the opinion section of the New York Times, and I'm waiting for, because I know I saved this article, so I'm just waiting for it to pull up here. It said, we were badly misled about COVID. Right, that's what the title says. We were badly misled about COVID. This was written mid-March 2025 by Zeynep Tufekci, who writes for the New York Times. And it says, we were badly misled about COVID. We? Who's we? Who the hell is we? Zeynep? No. It should say you were, because you are representing the New York Times. So not the New York Times was misled. No, the New York Times did the misleading, and a whole bunch of other people in the government on both sides politically. When Mr. Ibram X. Kendi, who wrote the book called How to Be an Anti-Racist, it is a book with a whole lot of bad data, but it is sensational and interesting read if you're a person who thinks the way that I think. I read the book twice because I just had to make sure that what I read was what I read the first time, so I had to double check and do it again. And even Max Kennedy's book, there was no intellectual rigor, and it showed in the data that he produced. It's not even that his data was inaccurate. It was what I call bad data, which is you take one surface level piece of data and you don't dive deeper into the data. So you're only using the data that basically affirms and validates the point that you're trying to make, but you don't look for any data that may disprove what you're trying to say. And again, when you have intellectual rigor, that kind of stuff never makes it through the publishing process. Doesn't make it through the editing process, let alone does it get published. And I know, because I've written books with traditional publishers, I know exactly what the editing process looks and sounds like. And I didn't even have data in my book, and I saw the way they were basically playing rough with any claim that I made. How the hell did his book make it through to the publishing? I know how, because he had an idea that was so widely accepted that no one wanted to question it, because they wanted to get it out there because they saw the chance to make money from it. And this is one of the challenges with a lack. This is why I say a decline in intellectual rigor is not happening anymore, because people are saying, okay, well, this can make us some money. Let's not challenge this idea too much. Let's just go along with it because there's money to be made here. Let's get it out there. We are lowering academic standards to make it easier for people who otherwise would not be qualified to do something academically to do it. Get into a college that you otherwise wouldn't get into because we lowered the academic standards. If a school used to say, you need this baseline of a score on these tests and this type of GPA in order to even be eligible to be considered to be in our selected pool of new students. But now they say, okay, well, we have this diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. We have to let in a certain amount of Latin and Black students. They generally, as a whole, are not hitting these academic standards, but there's no way we can reach our quota by making them come up to this standard, because there are not enough of them. Even if we accepted all of them, we wouldn't hit our quota. And if we want to keep getting tax breaks from the government and funding from the government, we need to do what the government tells us to do. See, this is the incentive here. And so what we got to do is we got to lower the standard. We have to lower the standard to make it easier for us to have a bigger pool of eligible candidates that fit the DEI policy requirements. And I'm doing all of this as an example here. And this example ain't too far from reality of what was and maybe still is actually happening. And now you have students who otherwise would not be qualified, now getting into these schools. The problem is once they get into the schools, Thomas Sowell has talked about this extensively, these students are getting into these schools and they ended up flunking out because even though the acceptance requirements were lowered, the actual stuff that's happening in class has not changed. They're still teaching the same stuff at the same level and at the same pace that they did when they had really high standards for who got in, because the people who they let in are the students who have already proven that they can keep up with this type of rigorous coursework. But now you're bringing in students who have not proven it, have actually proven that they can't, but then you're throwing them into that and then they're failing. So you put them in a place they didn't belong and then they came up short. What did you think was going to happen? And again, this is the decline in education. So now you have people coming out of college ill-equipped because they went to the wrong school because they shouldn't have been in that school in the first place because we had a policy that tried to manufacture equality that never was going to work. But because, again, it sounded good and it felt good, it got pushed through the government. See, this is the issue. There's also more thought policing. Certain things you're not allowed to think. Certain things you're not allowed to say. Now we have these things called hate speech and disinformation and misinformation and harmful content. These are all bullshit phrases. And no such thing as hate speech. If I want to hate you, I'm allowed to hate you. If I want to hate you because of your skin tone, because of the religion that you practice, because of who you like to sleep with in bed, I am allowed to hate you and I have free speech rights that says I can hate you. Since when did we start policing people for saying something that we didn't like or that somebody else might not like? That's how you get rigor, mental and emotional rigor, by putting people in positions where they may have to face some things that make them uncomfortable. All right, this is how you grow and get better. It's like if they said, well, let's eliminate heavy weights in the gym because we don't want anyone to have physical rigor. People would say that's a ridiculous concept, but they're doing the same thing when it comes to the way people think and talk. What's the difference? And this is what's happening in our world. And more thought policing and people being generally too distracted to focus and learn. I have no idea what it's like for a teacher in school these days when every kid has a phone in their pockets. I've seen some schools where it said, I think I saw this on a sign, a school I was riding by down here in South Florida. I think it said, turn in all phones when you come into school or something like that. Like no phones allowed in class. I'm sure teachers have those policies like no phones, but how do you actually stop a kid from using their phone in class? How do you actually do it? I'm not sure there's a way to do it. I think other schools though have more strict policies where it's like, hey, as soon as you come into the facility, we take your phone, we put it away for you, and at the end of the day when you leave, we give you your phone back. That's how schools should do it. I don't think every school does that. I'm sure I got some teachers, some school teachers in here and some parents with some kids in school. Tell me what's happening in your schools with your kids when it comes to the phones, because if kids are distracted by their phones, how are they actually going to learn what's being taught? Well, the answer is they won't. So this leads to a less informed and a less intelligent society. That's the outcome of this. Despite our increased access to information, we are less informed and less intelligent than we've ever been. Think about that. Isn't that what the information superhighway was supposed to do? Those of you who are old enough to remember the commercials that came out about a quarter of a century ago, the information superhighway, there's going to be a world where we have access to all the world's information at our fingertips and anyone will be able to access pretty much any information at any time virtually for free. That happened. The information superhighway happened. We are riding on it right now. All right, some of you have planted houses on the information superhighway. We're all on it. It happened. The issue is, even though we have access to all this information, we ain't using it. We're telling people what they have to think, what they have to believe. You're accepting it when someone tells you what you have to think, what you have to believe about a certain thing because of your identity. Well, you're black, so you have to believe this. You're white, you have to believe this. You're LGBTQ, so you have to go along with this. And people are thinking less, even though we have access to more information. Isn't that interesting? See, intellectual rigor naturally goes down when people don't have to think to get access to information. So it used to be if you wanted some information, you had to actually do some thinking. Okay, who might have this information? Where might it be? Where do I have to go? And what do I have to do once I get there in order to access the information? Oh, I need some information. Oh, it might be in a book. Well, where are books? They're in a library. Let me go to the library. Let me ask the librarian. Let me go through the card catalog. Some of you don't even know what a card catalog is. Let me go through the card catalog, find the book that I need to get, go through the stacks and find the book, pull the book out, check it out, go sit down, read the book, get the information, write it down. Now I can do something with the information. Nowadays, all you got to do is open up ChatGPT and ask it a question. You don't even have to type. So, of course, people are less intellectually engaged. We took all the work away. Technology, the trade-off, one of the trade-offs of technology is that even though on the good side, it made it easier to access information, on the bad side, it made it less necessary to actually use your brain. So people have actually gotten dumber. Is this hurting society? Of course it's hurting society. This is the trade-off of increased access to anything that we consider to be knowledge. This is not only for the students who are supposed to learn, it's also for the teachers who are supposed to teach. They don't have to work as hard. Teachers can become more lazy. They don't have the same incentive to teach because they don't have students who are as willing to learn. I mean, it's much easier to teach when you got a willing audience than when you're talking to a bunch of people who don't want to hear what you have to say in the first place. Would you agree? Students who don't see the value in learning. They're like, well, hey, why do I need to learn this? I'm listening to this guy, Dre's podcast, and he's trashing the educational system. Mr. Teacher, why do I need to listen to you? Mrs. Professor, why do I need to listen to you? And you got to figure that out as a teacher or as a professor, because now kids can hear things from people like me and others who are saying things that go against the grain of exactly what you're trying to do. And they can hear it all day when they're not listening to you. Now you got to combat against that in addition to doing what you're supposed to be doing. We made it harder. So again, I'm not saying that someone like me or the technology we have access to that allows your kids to access it is necessarily a bad thing. What I'm saying is this is one of the trade-offs of it. Everything in life has a trade-off. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. It's just a trade-off. There are no perfect scenarios. And one of the trade-offs of this scenario is that generally is making us not as smart. The technology that we have access to and that we use is quickly replacing the need for human beings with any level of intelligence, which contributes to the exacerbation of this issue. Like, just having a knowledgeable person in the room doesn't matter as much as it used to. It still matters, but not as much as it used to. So that means the intelligent person is becoming an endangered species and eventually is going to go extinct because we don't need them as much anymore. Pretty soon there's going to be a robot that can talk just like I talk that has all the information that I have because it's going to have downloaded everything I ever put out there, and boom, what do you need me for? Now, what I'm telling you is I'm going to own one of those robots and have it working for me rather than have it working against me. And you can do the same thing. I'm just giving you an example here so y'all can understand. Our society is just not as smart as we used to be. We are not as mentally rigorous as we used to be, i.e. we are not critical thinkers. We are not as mentally resilient as we used to be. And here's the crazy thing, folks. This is all by design. It was designed to be this way. This is not by accident. It was designed to be just like this. What I suggest to you all, I've said this many times before. I will continue to say it in the future. In the future, I'm going to be saying this louder and more clearly than I'm saying it even now, because it's going to become more alarming to a bunch of you who are still asleep at the wheel right now. Is that you need to learn how to use these things that I'm laying out for you so that they are on your team rather than your opponents. You don't want these as an opponent because you're not going to win. Point number 8. Today's topic, once again, is why Western society is continually declining. Number 8, overdependence on technology and the decline of human skill. I just touched on this in the previous point. Artificial intelligence and automation, we already know, are replacing jobs. Some of you have been replaced already through artificial intelligence and automation. Some of you are going to be replaced, and you don't even know you're going to be replaced by artificial intelligence and automation. Addiction to comfort is going to be the cause of death for a lot of people in Western society. And again, this is what I'm telling you. This is all by design. It was designed by the people who have created these technologies and the people who continue to create and perpetuate these technologies to make it as comfortable and as easy as possible for you to not have to think or to move. You don't have to physically challenge yourself. You don't have to mentally challenge yourself. And with the algorithms on certain social platforms, you don't even have to emotionally challenge yourself because you're only going to see, read, and hear things that align with your worldview. Even if your worldview is based in bullshit, because you can just see whatever you want to see. I remember after the 2024 election, a bunch of people were threatening that they were going to leave social media, and a bunch of them actually did. And there's an app called X, formerly known as Twitter, which is basically the marketplace and the town square of ideas on current events and social issues. X is the place where it goes down if you want to talk about current events. That's just what it is. And a bunch of people on X who were clearly supporters of the political left, upset over the outcome of the election, all decided they were going to jump over on this other app called Blue Sky. Blue Sky had marketed itself. I'm not a user of Blue Sky, but it marketed itself as a place that is less, quote unquote, less toxic than X. What exactly does less toxic mean? Basically, it meant this is a safe haven for political leftists and supporters of the political left who don't want to deal with people who are now feeling even better because Donald Trump won. You don't want to even have to see the stuff that they post or have them reply to the bullshit that you post. So come over to Blue Sky where you can be in an echo chamber and everybody has the same opinion. And that's what Blue Sky marketed itself as. They didn't say it in those words. I'm saying it in my words, but that's what it marketed itself as. And what was interesting to me, I saw a lot of people who are supposed to be these intellectually rigorous individuals, lawyers, business owners, CEOs, C-suite executives, academic, people who work in academics, professors, teachers, jumping over to Blue Sky. Why? Because you don't want to talk to people who might disagree with you, even after the country disagreed with you. Again, this is a reflection of how we become mentally weak. And addiction to comfort, loss of real world interaction, and the smartphone making people a lot more stupid as they don't need to use their brains anymore, and technology is replacing human thought. I consciously try to make myself do this. When I get in the car and drive, all of you know, if you have a car that has come out in the last, 5 years, that many of you have this CarPlay thing in your phone. As soon as you get in the car, whether by Bluetooth or as soon as you connect it through the auxiliary cord, that your phone is connected to the car system and your navigation comes up on the screen. How many of you get in the car and you plug in navigation to go somewhere that you've been 1,000 times before, but you put in navigation anyway? All of us are guilty of doing this. We may not do it every time, but we all have done it. One of the excuses that I give myself unconsciously for doing it is, hey, maybe there's an accident or some traffic or something that I just want to be aware. Maybe I can avoid it if something's happening. But the reason that we do it is because technology is conditioning us to work less hard mentally on the things that we need to get done. And this seems like a little thing, but before you know it, you won't be using your brain. You'll forget directions to things all over again because you don't have to think anymore. You may lose your ability to spell because you don't have to type anymore. You can just talk and the words come out on the screen. I do a whole lot of talking to text. I still know how to spell because I have to go through and edit my shit after I write it. But this is one of the things that's happening right now. This addiction to comfort. And the smartphone is taking your brain away from you and making you dependent on the technology, at which point the technology owns you. That's where it's going, folks. All of us have become guilty of this on some level, some more than others. And again, if you're over the age of 35, you are lucky enough to have lived in a world where you had to actually think to figure things out. You had to remember directions, or you had to figure out, how do I get from here to there without a map? And you are possibly, hopefully, still young enough to add technology to your stack, so to speak, of resources. Those of you who are under 35, you may have to be a bit more conscious about using your brains for thinking instead of defaulting to, let's say, ChatGPT when there's a question in front of you. Now, we come from an era where you couldn't default to that. You had to actually get the answer from somewhere else. Now, again, why would you think instead of going to ChatGPT? What's your reasoning? What's your logical reason for doing so? That's the issue. See, technology is replacing the human mind, and this is happening on a mass scale. This is not some small thing. Point number 9. Today's topic, once again, is how Western society is collapsing and why it's collapsing. Number 9, declining military strength and a global power shift. It has become harder, and it was very hard during the Biden-Harris administration to recruit new people into the military because people simply were not enthusiastic about the United States of America, and the Biden-Harris administration were not providing many reasons for anyone to feel that way. Now, again, Trump coming in, the military enrollment numbers surged up again as soon as he won in November. They were sagging during the Harris-Biden administration because Harris and Biden seemed to be caring more about other lands outside of America and other people who are not in America than they were about America itself. So why would you sign up to defend this? Nobody wanted to. And Eastern powers are getting stronger, such as China. They're getting stronger. And many Western countries losing faith in their countries. Now, many Western countries, people in those countries rather, are losing faith in the country. And now you have a lowered willingness to defend it. Again, who wants to defend a country? If you are a patriot and you've been around America for a long time and you believe in American values and you see what the Harris-Biden administration was doing to America, why would you sign up to lay your life on the line to defend it? When people do not believe in the culture of a country anymore and are not sure what the culture actually is, they are not as aligned when it comes to having pride in the place in which they live and the place from which they come. Who is going to lay their line on the line to defend their life on the line, to defend that land? Who's going to do it? It's not going to be the people who came in. They just got here. They're not going to lay their lives on the line. And it's not going to be the people who've been around because they don't like the fact you're bringing in the people you're bringing in. So who's going to lay their life on the line? We got a problem. These are legitimate questions for the military. And when the military gets weak, especially in the eyes of its opponents, you become food. When I say food, what that means is you become ripe for an attack. You become prey, not predator. Eastern societies are not having these problems that we are having, because Western societies, again, have gone along with a whole lot of ideologies that are based in complete nonsense, but they feel good emotionally. No one checked them on that bullshit, and now we're in this position. And Eastern societies do not have the problem that we're having. They are noticing this issue that I'm pointing out. And I would suggest, if you're an American, do not be so arrogant as to think that we can never be attacked and be the weaker party in a certain situation. Because everything I've shared with you so far, this is continuing to happen. We're getting weaker and weaker as a society as a whole, and eventually we're going to be ripe for an attack. Don't think that it can't happen in your lifetime. And I'm saying an attack on our soil, on our land, by a foreign enemy. Can that happen? Yes, it can. Will it happen? Hopefully not. But don't think it can't. On that said, everybody, let's recap today's class. This is part 3 of our ongoing series, Why Western Society is Collapsing. Number 7, a decline in education and intellectual rigor. People are simply not thinking anymore. Even the people who are supposed to teach you how to think are more highly rewarded for telling you what to think. Number 8, overdependence on technology and the decline of human skill. People simply do not need to develop skill anymore because nothing is forcing them to do so. AI and automation have made your life easy, but what you don't realize is AI and automation are taking your wallet out of your back pocket while they're giving you a back massage. You don't even feel it, and you're not going to realize it till you are assed out and have nothing left. Number 9, declining military strength and a global power shift. There are global enemies who are watching the United States and seeing us collapse, and this is going to let us get as weak as possible before they go and do whatever it is they want to do. If we keep going in the wrong direction, they're planning on something, and this could happen while you're still alive. All right? Don't think this is something that's 100 years away. No, this is coming soon if we keep declining. But hopefully we can reverse course as far as where we've been going up to this point. All that said, everybody, tomorrow we will get into part 4 of this mini series, Why Western Society is Collapsing. Between now and then, you want to make sure that your society, your game, your career, your business does not collapse and is as strong as a rock. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can schedule a time to talk to us, have me as your direct coach, and we can get to work on the serious business that needs to get done in your life and in your career and in your business. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all